the organisers of the conference, for their wonderful hospitality. I'll start this morning by talking about the European debt crisis of 2008, the economic crisis in Europe, and I want to talk about Ireland as a particular example of that. So the recent crisis has ended the Irish economic boom, or in Ireland as it's called, the Celtic tiger. The wealth and confidence of the Celtic tiger economic boom has dissipated. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, traditionally very influential in Irish life, is also in a downward spiral. This paper asks whether, given these conditions, spirituality still has a place in modern Ireland. In Ireland, the idea, the notion of modernity, often connoted a rejection of rural, folk, traditional identity. Instead, a metropolitan, urban, forward-looking national idiom grew up, one which rejected twee old Ireland and placed its faith in Western technocratic progress. For Irish modernisers, it is the case of out with the old, in with the new. Ireland used to be characterised as a woman, as Mother Ireland. The Irish national poet W.B. Yeats wrote of Catheleen the Houl'han. You see on the left, Catheleen, this is Mother Catheleen, Mother Ireland, the old spiritual Ireland. In the last 20 years, that has been replaced by the Celtic tiger. So instead of an old spiritual female Ireland, we now have aggressive, masculine tiger Ireland. During the Celtic tiger boom, the economic growth from 1995 to 2007, the new Irish identity, the Celtic tiger, was based around a dichotomy. On the one hand, there was capitalist Ireland, forward-looking Ireland. On the other was ruralist, spiritual Ireland. In the popular consciousness, spiritual Ireland, old Ireland, Mother Ireland, Catheleen the Houl'han, was most commonly associated with this man, Eamon de Valera, the longest-serving Prime Minister in Irish history, a national hero of Ireland. De Valera was a dominant political figure in the 20th century. He was born in New York City in 1882 to an Irish mother and a Spanish or Cuban father. We don't know. His political rivals called him the Spanish bastard because of this doubt about his fatherhood. But he was a very devoutly spiritual man. He considered joining the priesthood himself. He led Ireland from 1932, with some interruptions, into 1973, so a very big historical figure. He dominated Irish politics for almost 60 years. So what was the political vision of this man? De Valera, the hero of Irish independence against England, had a spiritual vision for Ireland. Ireland would be spiritual. And he encapsulated this in a dream. And he said, and I quote, "Ireland will be the home of a people who value material wealth only as a basis for right living, of a people who, satisfied with frugal comfort, devote their leisure to things of the spirit, a land whose countryside will be bright with cosy homesteads, fields and villages joyous with the sounds of industry, the romping of sturdy children, the contest of athletic youth, and the laughter of happy maidens, whose firesides would be forums for the wisdom of serene old age, the home, in short, of a people living the life that God desires that men should live." So this was the Catholic spiritual Ireland of Eamon de Valera. De Valera also said, "No man is worth more than £1,000 a year." This has become ironic given the recent Irish economic boom, where we have big inflated salaries. And De Valera also said, "If I want to know what the Irish people want, I have only to look to my own heart." So he's a sort of spiritual guru, if you like, for old Ireland, old Catholic Ireland, the embodiment of frugal, spiritual, Catholic, anti-materialistic Ireland. But in the years following De Valera's death in 1975, he became the subject of derision. The 1980s was a very difficult period for Ireland. We had overvalued currency, endemic corruption, emigration, unemployment, and a lot of political instability, especially in Northern Ireland, where the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, were waging war. As the 1980s became the 1990s, and there was increasingly peace in Northern Ireland, Irish society, after the peace process, went through a liberalisation, and a liberalisation of society and the economy. Old Ireland, spiritual and pure, appeared increasingly laughable. The pious and disciplined vision of De Valera was lampooned mercilessly, and De Valera's Ireland was, to quote one of his biographers, full of asexual mothers of 10, nodding approvingly, not an impure thought or an orgasm in sight. As Ireland became a capitalist tiger economy, De Valera's St. Patrick's Day speech became an irrelevancy. From the mid-1990s onwards, with the support of the European Union and low taxation policies, Ireland's economy underwent sustained growth. Redefinitions of identity occurred. Ireland became associated with Western capitalist technocratic progress. Spiritual Ireland was invoked by the Irish tourist industry, who were always very willing to get the Yankee dollar, but privately, spiritual Ireland was seen as a joke. In the words of one historian, Ireland could now finally consign Catheleen the Houl'han, on the left, to the dustbin of history. And she was called the Princess of the Begging Bowl. So Ireland was moving forward and forward. But the Celtic tiger drowned out serious problems. Property developers, financiers, and lawyers took over in many ways. The corruption endemic in Irish capitalism ensured the business of the country came to resemble the materialism so derided by Irish political independence movement. What the poet W.B. Yeats, and I keep referring to W.B. Yeats because he is the national poet of Ireland, and he had the spiritual vision for Ireland like De Valera, and W.B. Yeats condemned this modernity as the greasy till, this sort of materialist modernity. And Yeats asked, was it for this that all that blood was shed, all the blood of martyrs and heroes in the past? While the Irish tourist industry continues to churn out romantic material, several recent court cases have exposed the rotten heart of the Celtic tiger, where fast-track property deals went through easily, exemptions from planning permission. These are all issues which I think are facing Albania as well. Essentially, the property boom was what destroyed Ireland. Ireland now has 250,000 empty houses, like this. Estates built in the middle of nowhere because of this boom, huge property boom. So 250,000 empty houses. And people saddled with enormous mortgage debt, big mortgage debt, because of the cheap credit that was coursing through the economy in the 1990s and 2000. In 2008, amidst the European crisis, the Irish government guaranteed toxic bank liabilities, nationalising the debt, which has caused a huge problem. Meanwhile, the state had moved very much away from the spiritual vision of De Valera to a punitive materialism. Between 2003 and 2008, 1,500 people were jailed in the Republic of Ireland for failing to repay debts. In an infamous case in 2009, a young woman appeared before the High Court in Dublin for failing to repay a loan. She freely admitted she had used the loan to support her alcohol dependency. Were the borrowings used for anything else? Asked the judge. A silence hung in the air in the courtroom before she answered, yes, my baby's headstone and funeral. So this was a very sad example of how Ireland had moved from the spiritual to the material vision. Just the history of Ireland. In the 19th century, the Catholic Church enjoyed a very influential role in Irish identity. Significantly, in the middle of the 19th century, so around 1850, when Europe was convulsed by revolutions, especially in 1848. Ireland was unique because the Catholic Church was very much seen to be on the side of the people against the English. With the independence of Ireland in 1922, 93% of the population were Catholic, leaving only 7% Protestant. So the Catholic Church had a huge influence in Ireland, and a very big influence of the Catholic Church on politics, on the welfare system, on healthcare. The strength of popular Catholicism added to the impression that 20th century Ireland was a notable exception to the material depredations of the modern world, that Ireland was not like the Western world, that Ireland was a spiritual country. Ireland's most famous poet, W.B. Yeats, was in fact a Protestant, but he shared this common distaste amongst the Catholics of Ireland for this materialist march of international modernity. He defined Ireland by contrast as spiritual, as Catheleen the Houl'han. And he wrote of "We Irish, born to an ancient sect, thrown upon a filthy modern tide." The implication was there was something alien to materialism in Ireland, that the Irish were victims of it. But while the spirit of entrepreneurism now enjoys political hegemony and popularity in Ireland, so Ireland has become very material, it would be simplistic to attempt to chart the decline of spiritualism. Although Ireland as a country was transformed by membership of the European Union and then an economic boom, thousands of people in Ireland are still extremely devout. Many people in Ireland pray at Marian shrines, and many, during the 1990s and 2000, many people still claim to have seen the Virgin Mary weep, crying statues of the Virgin Mother, or lights in the sky of the Virgin Mother. So for all the Americanization of Ireland and the materialism, I suppose Irish people remain spiritual. And many people will pray, for example, to St. Anthony to help them recover lost items. These are common things. So there's a lot of these shrines in Ireland, popular shrines, devotion to the Virgin Mother. But what is very interesting now is that the Catholic Church in Ireland has been convulsed by several scandals, by child abuse scandals and paedophilia. And in 2011, the Irish Prime Minister launched an unprecedented attack on the Catholic Church. This had never been seen before in Irish history, because Irish history, defined as anti-English, had always aligned with the Catholic Church. But in 2011, last year, the Irish Prime Minister condemned the Vatican. He condemned what he called the dysfunction, the disconnection, the elitism of the Vatican, and claimed that the rape and torture of Irish children were downplayed by the Vatican in favour of upholding the primacy of the institution, its power, standing and reputation. And the Irish government has now closed its embassy in the Vatican. There has also been a notable decline in Catholic religious observance in Ireland. Many people do not go to church anymore, and this is because of these successive child abuse and paedophilia scandals. So Irish people today, for the first time in history, I think, are less willing to accept the authority of the Catholic Church. But this shift away from church authority does not necessarily indicate a decline in spiritualism, although the media says it does. Rather, I think it raises intriguing questions about what direction Irish popular faith and Irish national spiritual faith will take as Ireland in some ways breaks with the Catholic Church and struggles to overcome its present problems. Okay, Fáilim Deirid.